Welcome to episode 27 of ECTEL Bytes. The show is a production of the Eastern Caribbean Telecommunications Authority, and I'm your host, Coretta Crooks-Charles, ECTEL's Communications and Media Relations Manager. We use this platform to provide you with information about developments taking place in electronic communications by the Directorate or like-minded organizations. We have had a guest from the National Telecommunications Regulatory Commission, or the NTRC, in the Commonwealth of Dominica before, but it is our first time talking with the senior engineer at the Commission, Mr. George James. Welcome, Mr. James.
Hi, good morning.
May I call you George?
Yeah,
Okay, so
that's fine.
Thank you. Give us a brief overview of your role at the NTRC in Dominica, how long you've been with them, the number of people in your department, and basically a rundown of what you do there.
Okay, well, currently the head of the engineering department, and the structure basically is the senior engineer, two assistant engineers, and one consultant in the engineering department. And so we work as a team in the engineering department to support the Commission in its mandate, of course, to regulate telecommunications here in Dominica. In terms of what we do, it's very broad in that there are a lot of different areas that we're responsible for in engineering. One of the main things is the licensing of telecommunication services, monitoring and the ensuring of compliance to standards, management of the spectrum, type approval, numbering, managing the local area network of the NTRC, and of course responding to the public's queries, you can say, concerning applications, complaints, and so forth.
Okay, thanks for that rundown, George. Would you like to tell us briefly what inspired you to pursue a career in electronic communications and engineering?
Okay, yes. It really started shortly after I left high school. I got involved in amateur radio, and somehow I was fascinated with the propagation of signals and the designing of antennas. And so I got an opportunity to pursue studies in electronics engineering technology at the DeVry Institute of Technology. And shortly thereafter, I went on to pursue a program in the area of communication systems management at Ohio University. And when I concluded that program, I first, you can say, started off my engineering career in the area of broadcasting, where I worked with the national radio station, that's Dominica Broadcasting Service, who at the time was mainly radio and planning to deploy a television service. Yes. So that's what got me into telecom, so to speak.
Okay, thanks for that, George. And in reading your bio, I realized you're at the NTRC since inception. So you've been at this for quite a while.
Yes, indeed, from the inception. Yeah, actually, I saw the opportunity there with the establishment of the NTRC. I wrote and expressed my interest, and then it was Mr. Sylvester Cadet at the time. He now works with the ITU in Barbados, and Sylvester Cadet was actually the first executive director of the NTRC here. So at the time, he worked at the Ministry of Telecommunications, and was in the process of putting things together. And so, yeah, I had that privilege, and I was really grateful for that.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much for a bit of the history of the NTRC, as well as your, introduction into that space. So let's jump into our topic. How has the electronic communications landscape in Dominica evolved over the past few years?
Over the past few years, what we've seen is in the area of mobile. We've seen the migration of, you can say, the second, third, and fourth generation of mobile services. We moved from the GSM to LTE, so to speak, and now, it appears that we will be soon moving into the 5G, and somehow we probably will not have a choice but to deploy 5G, though it might be more costly to the customers. Well, first of all, the service providers who will probably pass that on to the customers, but ultimately, we believe that that's where we're heading right now. Another thing we've seen is movement, but as it pertains to fixed internet, the deployment of fiber to the home, and the main providers have been fairly successful in moving along with that, fulfilling that aspect of the plan. So the other thing we mainly have, you can say, two major players in the market, and a local provider who is trying their best to get a fair share of the pie, and it's been fairly challenging to them, and somehow we've seen some anti-competitive behavior with these two major players, and it's something that we've been grappling with and trying to regularize, so essentially that's what we have now.
Okay, thanks, George. Well, you did sort of mention, but I'll ask nonetheless, what are some of the biggest challenges Dominica faces in improving its electronic communications infrastructure? You just sort of mentioned the challenges you're having with the major players being anti-competitive and so on, but are there any other challenges Dominica is facing as it pertains to improving their infrastructure, as it pertains to electronic communications?
Well, one of the major things we have challenging the framework right now is the lag that we have with technology, and how technology is moving so quickly, and the regulatory framework is trying to catch up, and there are a lot of things going on with the trends in the sector. Of course, right now you have things like the OTT services, and competing with the generic services, so to speak, and the standard services in the sector. And right now, we have the whole issue of cybersecurity tied in with the digital transformation project that we have going on in the Caribbean right now. And somehow all these, or you can say these areas have to be synchronized, and there's a great need for effective collaboration in making the appropriate adjustments with the regulatory framework. And in the area of cybersecurity, right now, we are trying to, you can say the ministry is trying to put things in place to have a department in government manage cybersecurity in Dominica. Now, as to, from my understanding, both the digital transformation project and cybersecurity projects are pretty much special funded projects. And when the fund is depleted, as to how things continue effectively is a concern. And in the long run, as to the appropriate framework for effective continuity for those areas to sort of work together effectively, that's it's going to be, I mean, it is a challenge, but of course, we have things like AI coming in, and well, hopefully tools like AI and other things of that nature, would enable us to put things in place. But in terms of with the lag, it's certainly something that we're going to have to work hard at and to collaborate with other institutions like CTU and the ITU to help us to meet those challenges.
Thanks for that, George. And as you're speaking, it dawned on me that the Electronic Communications Bill, or the EC bill, could probably address some of these regulatory issues that you're speaking of once passed and enforced in our contracting states. So indeed, a lot of work needs to take place in ensuring that our framework is indeed robust to keep up with the times. So let's talk about
and as you mentioned, about the pending EC bill, we're very concerned about that. We in terms of the promulgation of that bill, in that it's dragging so long, and we need it to move on with the to catch up. So that's a concern here in Dominica. We're trying our best to get the Ministry of Legal Affairs to have that promulgated. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, George. So in terms of spectrum management, how does the NTRC go about managing spectrum in Dominica?
Well, in the area of licensing, we issue what's called frequency authorizations, and that would allow the licensees to either use a particular frequency or a particular band. There are some bands that are shared, and there are some bands that shared in a particular area, like in the area of mobile, where you have like the 700 band, and we have to share that band for different providers. And so we have to, along with what's referred to as our sub-regional ECTEL regional plan, manage different areas of the spectrum in pursuant to the ITU's spectrum plan and radio regulations. So the ECTEL spectrum plan is key. Of course, everything that we do is under the ambit of the law, and we have what's called a spectrum management regulation, and that specifies the procedure for spectrum and how we deal with interference and other such issues. With the spectrum regulation and the ECTEL sub-regional plan, we manage the spectrum. Of course, there is something called coordination as well with our neighbors, where if they're deploying a service or something like that, we have to have some degree of communication, and then sometimes we I should also mention, sorry, that Dominica, as a member state of ECTEL, has to coordinate with ECTEL engineering department for the assignment of frequencies and the issuance of frequency authorizations. And as well, these coordination matters I just mentioned goes through ECTEL as well. Another area of managing the spectrum is monitoring, and so we currently have 2 fixed monitoring stations, and we also have some mobile equipment, and that help us to monitor the spectrum.
Okay, thanks for that, George. Let's shift the conversation a bit to broadband and connectivity. What steps are being taken to improve broadband access across Dominica, especially in your rural areas?
Okay, for broadband, it's mainly the support of the Universal Service Fund projects that we do, and so the Universal Service Fund, one of the main areas that they have been very active in is deployment of community Wi-Fi systems, whereby in specific underprivileged communities, we make arrangements with the village councils and special groups to manage the systems, these Wi-Fi systems, and we try our best to have them organized to administer that service in their particular areas as well. Another thing that we've done is something called Net for All, which is a service that in collaboration with the providers, where it's a subsidized program whereby specific persons, again, who are not able to afford the internet at the regular prices. They are provided with, I believe, 100 megabits per second service, and for somebody to qualify for that, they would have to have at least one student in school. So anybody can just apply for that like that. There's certain conditions to provide that service.
Okay.
These are sort of like the two main areas. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. How does the NTRC monitor broadband quality, and what benchmarks are set to ensure good service for consumers?
Currently, we don't have a particular benchmark in place yet. Right now, we're seeking to do that, collaborating with ECTEL. But that would be for like say, but as it pertains like for the Wi-Fi services, right? But the internet service, as far as quality service is concerned, we go by the quality of service regulations that we have as it pertains to fixed internet.
Okay, thanks, George. So I'm just wondering, how does broadband hold up in Dominica during the rainy season or after a hurricane?
Well, there are two things in that question.
Yes.
During the rainy season, well, with the system that we have now, the rain doesn't affect the service. Really, that would probably happen in the older services that we had, but when you had things like the copper lines and so forth, and some of the microwave links and that sort of things, but these two are pretty much out of the picture right now, and so we have a more robust infrastructure that whereby the rain would not affect broadband today.
Okay.
After the hurricane, well, as you know, it depends on the severity of the hurricane, the impact, and so on. Of course, one of the, but it's pretty much contingent on the severity of the impact.
Okay, all right, thanks for that. Are there any upcoming initiatives or projects by the NTRC in Dominica that the public should be aware of? You already made mention of the Net for All initiative, but are there any others you'd like to share with those viewing?
Yeah, well, as we speak, there's this project, USF project, that's we're going to what did I say? So the NTRC actually was supposed to be we had to do this yesterday, but due to unforeseen circumstances, it had to be canceled. But the NTRC is going to make a donation to the largest high school I think we have in the north, which is the Northeastern Comprehensive Secondary School. We're going to provide 50 computers, 2 projectors, 2 printers, to that school. And that's one of the things that USF does as well. Apart from providing the Wi-Fi systems, we provide equipment to the schools so that they can have access to the internet. And not just the mere access, but also have supporting tools to use the internet service effectively.
Okay, that's remarkable. Thanks, George. So any closing remarks? And maybe you could also share with us NTRC's website and social media handles, because yes, I've seen quite a few posts from the NTRC.
Closing remarks. Well, in terms of fulfillment, of here at the NTRC, well, one of the things that I'm pleased about is the deployment of the fixed monitoring stations for engineering. That's a big plus in that, we can look at the spectrum, from our office here, and we don't have to travel and waste time, so to speak, or we can use our time more effectively. So that's a fairly big accomplishment. There's another thing that we are doing right now. We are just in the process of commissioning what's referred to as a Spectrum web application, whereby persons can apply for licensing services, telecommunication services on the internet, and so they would not have to fill up any forms or anything like that. They could do it right on the internet, through that web application program that we have, and also make complaints. And in that web application system, we also have some tools as well, where some of the providers could actually use those tools to do calculations before they make their submissions. So that's been going well, and so these are two major areas that we have accomplished in recent times. Moving forward, there's something called the technical working group. Yeah, ECTEL's technical working group is also a critical area of the engineering within the ECTEL states, and whereby we sort of like collaborate, knock our heads together to not just harmonize things, but of course to sort of support each other in the field of engineering. So so moving forward, just looking forward to have more effective collaboration with the other ECTEL member states, and also the CTU, because we sort of like fall under regional grouping called the ECTEL group, which is the Latin American group for telecommunications. And so there are a lot of things going on, and as I mentioned, we have to operate according to the International Telecommunication Union radio regulation and standards, and with organizations like ECTEL and CTU, we can catch up with the current trends and challenges that we have today.
Okay. And the handles on the website information, do you have that for us?
Oh, yeah, and yeah, NTRC.dm, www.ntrc.dm.
Excellent.
That's, yeah.
Okay, and I believe if you search on Instagram and Facebook, NTRC Dominica, you should find them there as well. So thank you so much, Mr. George, for being, George James, I said Mr. George, it's Mr. James, but George James, for being our guest on ECTEL Bytes. It was a pleasure having you.
Okay, thank you very much.
So we're counting on you to hit the like and share buttons to help us spread the word about this program. You heard quite a bit about what the NTRC in Dominica is up to with their USF projects, where they're going to be donating very soon to a high school in the north of the island, 50 computers, projectors, and printers. Mr. James also spoke about their Spectrum web application, which I'm sure we'll be having another program on that and very soon. And then I quite liked when he spoke about the technical working group for the NTRCs. This is an ECTEL technical working group, so they get to collaborate and share more about their work in engineering as it pertains to electronic communications. So remember, if you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comment section and we will be happy to reply. Apart from being on our Facebook page, the recording of ECTEL Bytes will also be on our YouTube channel, which is @ECTEL, as well as on Instagram and X @ECTEL Authority. And of course, it will be on our website, www.ectel.int. So be sure to share it with your contacts who are not on Facebook. That's it for episode 27 of ECTEL Bytes. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you again virtually in November for another episode. Remember, ECTEL Bytes is now also on a radio station near you. And so tell someone who may not be on social media. Let me just run very quickly over the stations. We're in the Commonwealth of Dominica on Q95 FM at 10:45, Grenada, WeFM at 9:30 a.m., St. Kitts and Nevis, Freedom FM at 1:15 p.m., St. Lucia, Radio Caribbean International at 10 a.m., and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Extreme Radio, 104 FM at 10:45 a.m. So we're going to be on the last 4 Thursdays of the month, with the exception of in December, where we'll be on the first 3 Thursdays in December. So thank you again for joining us. I'm your host, Coretta Crooks-Charles, ECTEL's Communications and Media Relations Manager. Until next time, take care and keep safe.